December 7th, 1941, a date that would change America forever. Within hours, the attack on Pearl Harbor pulled the United States into the deadliest war in human history. And across the country, something remarkable happened. Millions of young men lined up to enlist. Some wanted revenge. Some felt it was simply their duty. But one man had a reason unlike anyone else standing in that line. His name was Desmond Doss. He volunteered to fight in World War II, but he refused to carry a weapon. Let that sink in. A soldier heading into the deadliest conflict the world had ever seen, without a rifle. To the men around him, it didn't just seem strange, it seemed insane. How was he supposed to survive a battlefield where hesitation meant death? How could he protect the men beside him with empty hands? They called him a coward, they mocked him, threatened him. Some tried to get him kicked out of the army altogether. None of them knew this quiet, soft-spoken kid from Virginia was about to become one of the greatest heroes in American military history. So who was Desmond Doss, and why was he so determined to go to war unarmed? Desmond Thomas Doss was born on February 7th, 1919, in Lynchburg, Virginia. He grew up poor but rich in something else: faith. In his house, humility and compassion weren't just values, they were the rules you live by. And one rule shaped him more than any other, a line from the Bible he could never let go of: "You shall not kill." For most people, that's just a verse. For Desmond, it was a vow, one he intended to keep for the rest of his life, no matter what it cost him. But the world wasn't going to make that easy. War was already tearing through Europe. Nations were falling one after another. And then, on December 7th, 1941,
the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor.
America was at war. And like millions of other young men, Desmond felt the pull to serve. But he was caught between two convictions that seemed impossible to reconcile: his duty to his country and his promise to God. So he found a third option nobody expected. He enlisted, not as a rifleman, but as a combat medic. He wasn't going to war to take lives. He was going to war to save them. The Army had never seen anything like him. A soldier who wouldn't touch a weapon didn't fit the mold, didn't fit the uniform. Many thought he had no business being there at all. But Desmond never once asked for special treatment. All he wanted was permission to serve his country without breaking his promise to God. It seemed like a simple request. It was about to make him the most hated man in his unit. In the weeks ahead, the Army would try to break his resolve. His fellow soldiers would mock him, isolate him, and question whether he belonged in uniform at all. But before long, those same men would owe their lives to the soldier who refused to carry a gun. The moment Desmond Doss walked into basic training, he immediately stood out. Every other recruit picked up a rifle without a second thought. Doss refused to even touch one. And here's the thing, it wasn't defiance. It wasn't fear, it was a promise. One he'd made long before he ever put on that uniform. But nobody around him saw it that way. To the men in his unit, refusing a weapon meant only one thing: cowardice. The insults came fast. Some laughed at him. Others called him a burden, dead weight in a unit where every man needed to pull his own weight. A few said flat out that he had no business wearing the uniform at all. Even his own commanding officers weren't convinced. Again and again they pushed him to take a rifle. Again and again he said no. So the pressure got worse. They handed him the hardest, dirtiest duties they could find. He became a walking target for ridicule. Some nights, while he knelt down to pray, soldiers threw shoes and whatever else they could grab at him, hoping he'd finally break and walk away. He never did. Every morning he got back up. Every morning he put the uniform back on. Every morning he chose to stay. And slowly something started to change. Without arguing, without defending himself, without ever raising his voice. Some of the men around him began to see him differently, not because he fought back, but because he simply never stopped showing up. Behind the scenes, Doss trained like his life depended on it, because one day, other people's lives would. He learned how to stop a man from bleeding out in seconds, how to set a shattered bone in the middle of chaos, how to carry wounded soldiers to safety under impossible conditions. He didn't know it yet, but every one of those skills was about to be tested in the worst place imaginable. Then came 1945. The United States prepared to invade Okinawa, a battle that would become one of the bloodiest and most brutal campaigns of the Pacific War. May 1945. The battle for Okinawa was underway. For weeks, American forces had been grinding across the island against brutal Japanese resistance. Every hill, every ridge, every foot of ground came at a staggering cost. Then they reached the Maeda Escarpment. The troops had a simpler name for it: Hacksaw Ridge. A sheer 400-foot wall of rock standing between them and their objective. There was no way around it. The only way forward was up. As the first soldiers began climbing the cargo net bolted to the cliff face, none of them knew what was waiting for them at the top. They found out fast. The moment they crested the ridge, the battlefield exploded. Machine gun fire ripped across the open ground. Mortars rained down without warning. Smoke and dust choked the air as the earth itself seemed to shake. In seconds, the advance collapsed into chaos. Soldiers dove for whatever cover they could find. Medics sprinted from one fallen man to the next. Officers shouted orders, struggling to hold their units together. It was one of the most brutal battles of the entire Pacific War. And right in the middle of it, with no rifle and no way to fight back, was Desmond Doss. He'd come to Okinawa carrying nothing but a medical bag. While the battle raged around him, Doss did the one thing nobody else could bring themselves to do. He ran toward the wounded. Bullets snapped past him. Shells tore up the ground on every side. And still, he crawled from man to man across the shattered battlefield, treating wounds wherever he found them. Again and again, putting himself directly in the line of fire. Not to kill, to save. As the hours dragged on, the assault stalled completely. Finally, the order came down: retreat. One by one, exhausted soldiers climbed back down the cargo nets, leaving the ridge and everything on it behind. Night fell. The gunfire faded into silence. But Desmond Doss never climbed down. Scattered across the top of that ridge were dozens of wounded soldiers who couldn't move on their own. Men bleeding out in the dark. Men who might not survive until morning if no one returned for them. If Doss walked away now, he knew exactly what would happen. So he didn't. Standing alone on Hacksaw Ridge, with nothing but a medical bag in his faith, Desmond Doss made a decision that would become one of the greatest acts of courage in American military history. The battlefield had gone silent, but for Desmond Doss, the night was only just beginning. Alone on Hacksaw Ridge, swallowed by darkness, he started searching for the wounded. One by one, he found them. Some could barely lift their heads. Others drifted in and out of consciousness. Many had already stopped believing anyone was coming for them. Doss didn't care what the odds looked like. He wasn't leaving a single man behind. He treated their wounds as fast as his hands would let him, then dragged each one across the ruined ground toward the edge of the cliff. There he tied a rope around them and lowered them, one at a time, 400 feet down to the soldiers waiting below. Then he turned around and went back, again and again. Every single trip back onto that ridge was a gamble with his own life. Enemy fire could return without warning. One bullet, one wrong step near the edge in the darkness. That's all it would have taken. He kept going anyway. Each time he got another man safely over the edge, Desmond looked up into the night sky and whispered the same 6 words.
Lord, help me get one more.
Then he disappeared back into the darkness. Another soldier found, another life saved.
Lord, help me get one more.
Hour after hour, throughout the night, he kept going back for one more. By the time the rescue was over, Desmond Doss had saved approximately 75 lives. Many of the men he lowered from that ridge were the very same soldiers who had mocked him. The same men who believed he didn't belong in uniform. They were alive because he refused to leave them behind. Months later, President Harry S. Truman awarded Desmond Doss the Medal of Honor, making him the first conscientious objector to receive the nation's highest military decoration. When people asked how he found the courage to do what he did,
I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was just trying to do my duty.
Doss never called himself a hero. As far as he was concerned, he was simply doing his duty. But his story says something greater than that. Desmond Doss proved that courage isn't measured by the weapon you carry. It's measured by the lives you're willing to save. More than 80 years later, his story continues to remind us that conviction, compassion, and selfless courage can change history. Thank you for watching. Want the full story? Watch the complete documentary on the Echoes of History channel. New cinematic historical documentaries every week. Subscribe and uncover the untold stories that shaped our world.